Welcome back to Starkiller Base. Here we have the finals of our 401 Games February 2017 Winter Kit. On the left we have John Chan playing Jango Fett E. Balatik, First Order Stormtrooper, and on the right we have myself, John Gobe, playing Jango Fett, Elite Balatik, and First Order Stormtrooper. I brought the Rebel War Room to the table, and John is playing the Separatist Base. The Separatist Base is the battlefield where when you claim, your opponent has to do 1 unblockable damage to one of its characters. It's a really good battlefield when you're playing decks with a lot of hit points, like a 4 Stormtroopers or a 3 Stormtrooper and a Night Sister, or anything with endless ranks or anything like that. So it's kind of interesting to see in a Jango deck, although Jango Balatik Stormtrooper has 25 hit points, which is pretty high up there. Well, this is the finals of this tournament. I did record another tournament at face-to-face games just recently, so the first round of that will be coming out soon, so keep an eye out for that. We're just rolling off for initiative there, and it looks like John, myself on the right there, gets to choose the battlefield, so I'm just taking a look at his battlefield and seeing whether or not I want to pick mine or his. My thought process is sort of that we'll both be using the Rebel War Room at the same effectiveness because we have the same pay sides on our dice most likely. So I figured with Separatist Base, my First Order Stormtrooper can take 6 hits and not worry about it too much, I guess. So I picked that one just to get the shields on Balatik.
Good luck, John. Good luck, John.
I figure Balatik will be key in this battle since we both have 3 character decks and not a lot of hit points on our characters. So I put my shields on Balatik, and my thought is to take out his Balatik early if I can, so that I get my double activation on Balatik's and he does not. So he puts out a jetpack on his Jango, I put out a DH-17 on mine. Jetpacks are always scary on Jango's. I mean, his jetpack can already roll in and potentially do 5 range damage without me being able to do anything about it. So John plays a hunker down to stall, I play a hunker down to stall, he takes a shield, I take a shield, and we laugh about it because we're playing the mirror match. Joking that we know each other's decks pretty well, since we've been playing them all day, basically.
Don't worry, eventually, well, I guess we already played just enough for you.
So somebody's got to roll in sometime, right? So it looks like John's coming in with his First Order Stormtrooper there and rolls the 1 range damage, which is no fun to see when there's that many modified sides out on his dice already, but that's what the First Order Stormtrooper is in the deck for. So I do not react, and I play an On the Hunt on Balatik. So he rolls in his Balatik. I think not reacting was probably a mistake because this way I'm only going to have 2 dice in the pool, whereas he's going to have 5 potentially when he reacts. I'm just explaining he can react off of my reaction, but it'll be my action next. But now he's seen what dice I have showing, which is a 2 range for 1 and a +1 resource, which really isn't much of a threat. Whereas he doesn't have much on the board either, but he'll have 5 dice that he can start working with. So he rolls in his Jango, gets a melee damage at modified 3 range side. He's got a blank and a shield in Balatik. I roll in Balatik, I get a +1 range to blank and a single range, so unfortunately I didn't have any die control, so I just take 4 on Jango. And that leaves my Jango open and naked to taking a melee damage and losing hunker down. I bring in my First Order Stormtrooper and get a big blank, which is pretty typical of the guy. And John puts 1 into Jango, and I lose my hunker down. So I've got a lot of dice out here, and John doesn't have many, so hopefully I can reroll and get something going here. So I keep my 1 ranged on Balatik, just in case there's modified sides. I reroll. I get a blank, a 2 range damage, a 1 range damage, a shield, and an On the Hunt special, which is not all that useful, but Jango's got a shield, so it's not wasted at least. And he's also got that shield die out there. So Jango and Balatik both have 2 dice on his side at this point, so I'm thinking that Balatik is still the bigger threat, because at least I can take him out quicker. So I decide to focus my damage on Balatik. He plays he doesn't like you and takes away my 2 damage die, which is unfortunate, but such is life. I put 2 damage into his Balatik. John doesn't have much left to do. He's got no resources and a single die, so He puts a shield on Balatik because he knows that Balatik is getting hit. So I remove it so I have something to do with on the hunt.
And put it on.
John claims when I put a damage on my first order stormtrooper, and then I take a shield and put it on Django. I've got no resources out there, so there's not much point re-rolling that DH-17. And my last card in my hand, I believe, is a backup muscle there, so I definitely didn't want to discard it to re-roll anyway. So let's see what John starts off with here. I'm sure we'll do the dance again and see who can stall the most. Of course, he's got his hunker down already, and I don't, so he's got a an extra stall tactic over me, I guess. Jetpack number 2 on Django is pretty terrifying. I mean, he can potentially roll out 8 damage and kill one of my dudes in one hit. I've got a lot of mitigation in my deck, but when you're dealing against Django there's not much you can do if he just activates or reacts rather and then does his action. So I play a backup muscle out for 1, which is my little bit of a stall here. And then John hunkers down on his Django. And I put 1 damage into Balatik with backup muscle. I know John likes to play fast, so I figure that if I can stall a little bit, then he'll probably just roll somebody in and start things going. I actually think that as much as you don't want to roll in first, especially against a Django with 2 dice like 2 jetpacks like that, getting those extra dice in when it's going to be your activation is pretty good. So he rolls in the first order stormtrooper, gets a resource. I react with my Django, and I get the exact same as last time, the 2 ranged for 1 and a +1 resource, which is probably not what I was looking for. It'd be nice to have 4 damage to put on somebody, but such is life. So John's coming with Django, and I'm feeling better that that first order stormtrooper die is not showing a black range damage now. So he's got that 3 range damage, or 3 modified range damage on the jetpack, which is pretty scary. So I'll have to keep an eye out for that. So Balatik is coming in on my side. I get 1 range, and an on the hunt special. So with on the hunt out there, I don't really care all that much if he's hunkering down on Django. I can just let him do it for 3 turns and then wipe them all out in 1 shot and even take away a die.
Melee on this side. I'm gonna get rid of his shield and just do the hunker down.
Logistics.
So John plays logistics and resolves his stormtrooper die. And now I see he has 2 resources, and I'm thinking this is a ranged meta here. So I want to do some re-rolling, but I'm a little bit worried about the potential for a dodge now that he has 2 resources.
I don't like 2 resources in a deck that has dodge. That's not
Giving it some thought here, thinking about whether just to resolve some range damage at a time, so that, you know, if I re-roll and get 6 dice with range damage and he just goes, whoosh, paid 2 for dodge, get rid of them all. At least if I can resolve some of them in an action, then it does slow down my turn a little bit, but at least I'm setting myself up for less of a loss if he dodges. I put 2 into Balatik, and he has 3 hit points remaining on his Balatik there. And it turns out I didn't have to worry about it because he was getting 2 for the F11D. So my first order stormtrooper comes in, gets a resource. The extra resource would be nice. It'll let me pay for my 2 damage side, but also be able to pay for on the hunt's second ability to remove a die here. So John rolls in Balatik and doesn't exhaust him, but he gets a focus, a blank, and a focus. So chances are that on the hunt special is going to be used for some die control, so I take a resource so that I can pay for it and have some flexibility.
Take the time to focus ahead now before he dies, possibly.
Yep.
So Balatik does double focus. Sets the Django die 2. 2 range damage. And then he could either set the jetpack to something or set the F11D to the special, I guess, since he doesn't have any resources. At least it's 2 damage. It's not too bad. I mean, if you set the other jetpack to a +3, then all you're doing is setting yourself up for either a glorious kill or you've just lost both your dice effectively. I've got the on the hunt special out there with $1. So he knows that I can get rid of it with that, if nothing else.
I will resolve this to remove your shield.
So getting rid of 2 shields with an on the hunt and the Django die, and effectively making 2 3 modified sides on his jetpacks useless for the turn is a really, really awesome on the hunt as far as I'm concerned.
If you had set this to the 2 black,
There's nothing.
I'm sure that he would have loved to set the F11D to the
Only
black
one is
side
key, I think.
yeah.
if he had a resource, but he didn't, so that's what he chose to do.
Yeah, well,
He could do a reroll here and see what comes up, get some shields. Even the special will give him a shield. So he plays unpredictable and rerolls the jetpack. I would have probably just discarded the unpredictable and rerolled all 3 dice, rather than just rerolling one that at best I'm going to be able to take a disrupt or a 2 shields or something like that. I suppose he was looking to hit the shield side or the special side and then immediately take shields and put them on Balatik since I have the 2 damage showing. So I've got that 2 range for 1 showing. I've got the money to pay for it.
Can't stop him.
John's second action after playing unpredictable is he claims. I put a damage on Balatik because he doesn't seem to care about him right now. I pay 1 to resolve my 2 range damage to hit Balatik for 2 and leave him at 1 health remaining. So now, whether he digs in or not next turn, I can still kill him with backup muscle. I'm going into this turn thinking, how can I get my Balatik dice in before I kill his Balatik? I know it's kind of risky depending on what he rolls, but I wanted to be efficient, so that was what was going through my head, and we'll see whether or not it was a trap. I figure worst case scenario, he rolls in his Balatik, he gets a good roll, I can just back up muscle and the guy's dead anyway, so I'm not too worried about it, but I want to let him roll Balatik in and see what he comes up with first.
good question, man.
And John's probably thinking, well, there's no point in me rolling Balatik because the second that I do, John is going to kill him. But the thing is, rolling in Balatik first for John here forces me to make the decision. Whereas if he doesn't put those dice in the pool, then I can do other things in the meantime, like playing upgrades on Django. John passes, and I put an F11D on my Django to make him a bigger threat. I could have just used my backup muscle to kill Balatik there. The best outcome for me for this turn would be to get my Balatik dice into the pool before I kill his Balatik, and also have it so he's rolled out everybody, so that when he redeploys the F11D, he can't roll it again because all of his characters are activated. So John rolls in Balatik,
I will react with Django.
gets a resource, a range damage, and a 2 modified range side. I react with Django. I get a blank, a 2 range for 1, and a resource, and it is my turn, but John can choose to react here. So he reacts, gets a blank on the jetpack, a resource, and a disrupt. So I'm not too worried about his dice at this point, as long as I can get rid of that 1 range damage there. So I'm thinking that I could play He Doesn't Like You, get rid of that die, rather than killing him. And maybe it's a mistake. We'll find out soon.
Trying to get Balatik to activate again, which is
I mean,
probably
right now it
bad
looks like
plan.
the best thing he can do with Balatik is get a resource, and I'm not too worried about that because he already has
Got lots
2.
of bad plans, John.
So I'm safe to leave Balatik alive until I see a black range damage out here, potentially. It may backfire, but we'll see.
I get no resources.
Okay.
So John takes a resource,
Roll
and I
Balatik.
figure, okay, I'm still good. I roll in my Balatik, and I have succeeded in getting my Balatik dice in before killing his Balatik, and in my head I'm real happy about that. I'm not too worried about the fact that he took a resource, but I believe the next action here is where I realize that I have made a bit of a mistake.
I'll play disarm.
John plays out disarm, uses that F11D rifle side that shouldn't have been there if I kill Balatik to get rid of my F11D, and that's really unfortunate, especially since it has redeploy, and it was on my Django, who is the main target here. But such is life. So I use backup muscle to kill his Balatik, and then I react to ready my Balatik. I'd feel better about that if my Balatik had more upgrades, but again, what can you do?
2 resources.
3 extra dice is 3 extra dice. I need to figure out how to get that on the hunt resolved so that I can re-roll it when I reactivate Baltique. So I'll probably be re-rolling it, or
Good as done.
so the trooper's coming in on John's side here, gets a blank and a range damage,
I will pay 2 for a jetpack.
and I put a jetpack on my Baltique.
It's only fair, John.
Figured I could use the extra firepower since he just got rid of my F11D. And John doesn't have anything particularly threatening on his dice at this point, but he's got a few cards in hand, I believe, that he can use to reroll. And with the 1 black side and 2 jetpacks, that's a scary amount of damage he can put out. At this point, if he rerolls, I can mitigate his dice. So he's discarding logistics and
Yep, good choice.
Actually, how many cards do you have?
and maybe rerolling. Apparently he likes logistics a lot. Okay, he discards the logistics to reroll.
You've got $2 already. You don't really need the money, so.
I told him that I didn't, I figured that he didn't need the money all that much. I learned later that he's running confiscation, so it might not be bad.
Flank that.
I flank the black range damage because he rolled a +3 and a +2 on his jetpacks. And nobody wants to take 6 damage in the face.
In hindsight, I probably should have just flanked this.
I point out here what I probably should have done is flanked the 3 damage instead of the 1 damage, because that way I guarantee that I'm at least only taking 3.
Yes.
Now he's got a Django die with 2 black sides and an F11D which has a black side as well, and he's got 2 or 3 cards in hand, and all he needs to do is get one of those black sides and I'm in big trouble, potentially. So I dodged it once, I roll in my trooper, and I get a blank. No surprises there.
Poorly.
I've only got 1 card left in my hand, and I have no resources out there, so if he connects with that black range damage, I may be in big trouble here. And I think statistically he probably will connect with the range damage. He's got 2 cards left here, so Django's a 1 in 3, and I guess the F11D is a 1 in 6.
Alright, I'm greedy. I will try for it.
Sure. I don't blame you, dude. There's 3 sides.
So he
right now.
rerolls.
+5.
It'll be all right.
1 in 6.
There you go.
There we
That's
go.
pretty
And there he is. Gets a range damage on Django and a +1 range damage, so that is now 7 damage, I think.
It is a dead.
Unfortunately, Django has exactly 7 hit points remaining on my side of the board, and he's probably dead. But there's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately, so I roll my Baltique in and get more modified range sides, and I have no black sides to connect them with.
Yeah, it's more than enough.
No, it's exactly enough. He has 11 effective.
So there goes my Django, sadly. I was feeling pretty good after I took out his Baltique, but now that I'm looking at it there with
Reroll?
me losing upgrades like that and him with F11D and 2 jetpacks out there, it's the game is turning in his favor, it seems. So I reroll a whole mess of stuff. I get a discard, a resource, a jetpack special, a +2, and a blank. That was, I believe, my last card. So I figure I might as well get the best of them. It was worth a shot with that many dice. I could have come up with a lot of damage, actually. What, 7, 8 damage? So that would have been
That's
nice.
exactly what I was looking for, John. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie.
Right now I need to be focusing on Django, especially since that First Order Stormtrooper has the F11D. Last thing I need is a Django with 2 jetpacks and an F11D on him.
Might as well. I think you do both.
Sure. Discard your card.
So John hunkers down on Django. I discard his last card and see the confiscation there I was talking about.
Okay.
John claims, and I put a damage on the First Order Stormtrooper because it's a First Order Stormtrooper.
Yeah, what am I doing?
His Baltique is gone, so I'm not too worried if I lose the trooper at this point. Take a resource, take a shield from the jetpack special, and then I pass. The jetpack special says remove a die showing melee damage and give the attached character a shield, so because it says end and there is no use of the word then in there, I can take the shield regardless of whether or not I get rid of a melee side. And so I pass, and we're setting up this next round here. Not feeling too good about my board state versus his with my 1 jetpack and on the hunt versus his 2 jetpacks, F11D, and on the hunt. Obviously, he's got a better board state than I do.
Backup muscle.
I get my second backup muscle out, which would be a lot better if I had one of his characters near death, but at least it lets me stall a bit. He gets yet another upgrade out on his first Aura Stormtrooper, and now I'm thinking that first Aura Stormtrooper is not a bad target to kill because he's got 3 upgrades on him.
I'll backup muscle the trooper for 1.
So I start putting some damage into the trooper with backup muscles so that he can't do some crazy Django stuff on me.
Okay. Make sure you get the right dice, please.
And yeah, I find it a little bit confusing with all the dice down there like that, so it's nice to see him separate them out like that.
I will.
It's a lot easier to track to make sure that people are rolling the right dice. So he rolls the first Aura Stormtrooper and gets a blank, a shield, a +1 ranged, and another +1 ranged. So thankfully there's no unmodified range damage on his 4 dice there, because when Django comes in, he could, again, potentially roll another 8 range damage into that, which would ruin my day. So I'm passing here because I don't really want Django to activate on me like that. It's a bit dangerous because he could potentially just re-roll the Stormtrooper's dice and look for some black range damage before he reacts with his Django, or rolls in Django. But I'm hoping, there we go, hoping that he was going to be efficient, and oh my goodness. Rolls in Django manually gets a 2 ranged, a +2 ranged, and a +2 ranged, so he now has 8 range damage showing up there. I play the best defense. I get rid of the Django die, and then because of all the modified sides out there, I look at what's on the table there and what he has the best chance of getting a black range damage side on there, and I remove the first Aura Stormtrooper die, even though it is technically a blank. The jetpacks aren't going to provide the modified range damage sides. The F11D could, on the hunt can't, and the DH-17. So the F11D only has 1 unmodified range damage, and the DH-17 has 2. He's obviously going to re-roll them to try, but the first Aura Stormtrooper had 3 sides, so I was just playing the odds there. Obviously, it would be nice to get Balatik in and put 5 damage into that first Aura Stormtrooper, but the odds of me doing that with the dice I have are not so good. So John plays Disarm again on me and takes away my jetpack, and that makes me very sad. I was not really expecting that, but such is life. Stormtrooper comes in, rolls a blank.
Really wish you would stop disarming me. I'm going to admit it. I'll just say it right now.
Shield 1 per trooper.
So he takes a shield on the first Aura Stormtrooper, and that makes me happy because that DH-17 die was the one that was most likely going to connect with those modified sides. I roll in Balatik. I get +2, and a discard. So my first Aura Stormtrooper die is what I'm relying on for the black damage at this point. And if I can get it, his first Aura Stormtrooper is not going to be looking so good. He'll have 1 hit point remaining, which can be backup muscled in an action next turn. So it is. It's not looking good for me here, but I'm still playing out. It's the finals for sure, so I'm not going to give up. We did not play a best of 3 in this tournament. We had 16 people and went 4 rounds of Swiss, and the store has sort of decided that we'll just go for. We'll do best of 3s in the top 4 in store championships and above. So John electroshocks one of my +2, and then I discard his card, which was a hunker down. He claims the battlefield, and I put a damage on Balatik because I was worried that he might put out a backup muscle and just take out my first Aura Stormtrooper if I put him at 6.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't run
so he's getting rid of all of his dice and moving things around and stuff, and I was asking him just to wait because the dice are supposed to be out there still. I don't think there's anything in my deck that actually can do things against them, but it's sort of how the game works. So I reroll. I get range damage to put with my modified range damage from Balatik. I do 3 to the first Aura Stormtrooper, leaving him with 3 hit points, which isn't enough to kill him with a backup muscle, but it's probably not going to be too hard to kill him with other dice. So once again here, I've got 4 dice. John has 3 on Django and 4 on the first order Stormtrooper, so he's got twice as many dice as me. I can get rid of 2 of them, 3 of them rather, if I can do 3 damage to that first order Stormtrooper. But I'm really worried about that Django with the double jetpacks, which are still out there. At this point, I feel like I should have taken out Django first because he had a jetpack turn 1, and he got another one since then. So he rolls in his first order Stormtrooper. Gets a blank, a shield, a resource, and a discard. I pay 2 for another jetpack because I need as many dice as possible. At least this one is safe from disarm since he's played both of them rather effectively on my head against my deck. I could have another jetpack and an F11D out there if it weren't for that, so that's definitely a big deal. And it was a good choice because if you've got a modified range damage side that you can't resolve, you just make disarm that much cheaper effectively, right? It's costing you a die that you weren't going to be using anyway. So I pass, and John resolves the discard on the hunt. And gets the best defense, which would have been nice. I backup muscle the first order Stormtrooper, leave him with 2 hit points. I'm really concerned about the Django activation here, so I'm trying to stall and do whatever I can to see if John will get bored and maybe just roll him in naturally. He could technically take a resource and stall, and then take a shield and stall. So he plays Unpredictable, rerolls his first order Stormtrooper die, gets a resource. I'm very happy that it was not a black range damage side. Now even with Django coming in, the best he can do is have a 1 in 3 chance of actually doing any damage with those jetpacks, because he needs to hit one of the 2 range sides on Django. So John takes 2 resources, and I am very happy to see that because that's 2 less dice to do damage. So I roll in the first order Stormtrooper, and Django comes in with, there we go, with +2, and a resource. John's jetpacks have been rolling really well this game.
See, now I find myself glad that you used your Unpredictable already.
So he's got 2 sides on each of his other dice that he could potentially use to connect those modified sides. He plays out a backup muscle. I roll in Balatique.
Incredibly poorly.
Got a on the hunt special, a blank, and a focus.
To be honest, but
He plays a second backup muscle, so I know that my first order Stormtrooper has essentially a lifespan of 2 actions. So I want to do something so that I can have some damage to do. So the first order Stormtrooper on his side has 2 hit points, and I was a little bit worried about some kind of die control, so I just set the Balatique die with a focus to a single ranged. So that way, you know, I don't need 3 damage to kill the first order Stormtrooper. So at least this way, I'm guaranteeing that I'll do at least 1 damage. Of course, he takes a shield. I get rid of it, thankfully.
remove your shields.
Every time he resolves another die that has all the black damage sides, I am happier and happier.
I'm just worried that if I made this a +2, you get rid of the Stormtrooper die, and then I'm back to square one.
And with him taking a shield rather than using backup muscle, I know that my first order Stormtrooper is safe for at least another 2 actions. So he's discarding the F11D to reroll probably the Django die here. Oh, never mind. Reroll all 3. Gets a jetpack special, +3 range, and a 1 melee. So I'm doing the 2 to kill the first order Stormtrooper, and I react to get my Balatique in, and I'm cautiously optimistic here that I might have a chance. It's going to be Django versus Balatique from the looks of it. He's got 2 backup muscles active, which is not looking good for me, and he's got that F11D redeployed over to Django, who has 3 shields on him. So Django's about as good as he can get right now. 2 backup muscles, fully loaded, full shields, and 3 2-cost upgrades on him. So that is a little scary. I need to reroll that jetpack die at some point. I can't resolve it by itself, really. So do I worry about whether to reroll it before I reactivate Balatik or not? I don't know. Balatik's got some focus there, potentially to turn the jetpack die to something usable. I've got a flank in hand, it looks like, and an electroshock, so I've got options. That's one of the things about passing in this and not reacting with Django and that sort of thing, is that when you've got flank that you're running, it sort of messes up your math a bit. If he rolls in somebody and I react, all of a sudden we're sitting at 2 characters each that are ready, so you can't play flank. A couple of times that I didn't react with Django, I might have been sitting with flank in there. So we just got the announcement that there were 3 minutes left in the round, so I'd like to finish this round quick so I can have another chance at trying to take out Django. So I have 6 hit points remaining on Balatik. Django has 10 hit points remaining. We have the same deck, which means that for tiebreakers, I need to get his Django to have less hit points remaining than my Balatik.
That's what the Death Troopers were all about. They're just like,
So it's a little bit daunting here when he's got backup muscles and more hit points than me.
no. The 3 Death Troopers.
How are you gonna get the money to end this race? I don't want to go.
So the guys from VTTV were streaming the tournament today. They're really cool, a couple of friends of mine. So go on and check out VTTV on YouTube. They stream Destiny tournaments and that sort of thing.
I think it's the amount of dead.
So they were sort of the unofficial judges, or I guess they were the official judges actually. And I was just asking them what the tiebreakers were. So
I will.
I resolve on the hunt and pay 1 to get rid of his Django die, because that way I know that that modified range damage is not happening.
Okay.
John resolves a jetpack special and puts a shield on Django here.
The fire.
Discard.
So I re-rolled Balatik and get a resource, a 1 range, and a 2 range on the jetpack.
I will do 3 to Django.
So I put 3 damage into Django,
I'll take a resource.
take a resource, because John passed. And so I put that unblockable damage on my Balatik. And now it's looking pretty interesting, like a big finish here. So my Balatik has 5 hit points remaining. His Django has 8.
Fair.
I've got 3 shields, so I've got a little bit of safety here, but the backup muscle is going to go right through the shields as well as the battlefield. So potentially, if he can get me to 7 damage, he can claim the battlefield and just have me dead. So it should be interesting. I believe I had some interesting cards. I thought I was pretty dead, and I pulled up my hand to 5 cards and took a breath in and said, "There's a chance here. I might have this." So we'll see how this last round turns out. Could be over very quickly. I'm going to get 2 damage from backup muscle. So I'll effectively have 6 hit points with the shields there. He doesn't have it on the hunt, so the shields are actually shields, but it's not going to be all that hard for him to do 6 damage on his Django.
Hunker down.
I play a hunker down because I, again, don't want him to just have that roll and resolve from Django. And I think I still had flank in hand. So if I can keep Balatik ready, I have a chance of having some extra die mitigation. Especially when he's only got 2 sides that can provide black damage. And then he plays the holdout blaster, which messes up my math on that one, because the holdout blaster's got 2 black sides.
Find the right die and then take a second.
So John's got an ambush from the holdout blaster, and we'll see what he does. He comes in for the big finish here with Django.
Here he comes.
Better shots than
Gets
actual guns.
2 blanks, a 1 ranged, and a 2 ranged for 1. So I electroshock his F11D away. I'm thinking here that Balatik can stand for a little while longer. I've got the hunker down, so if I have any upgrades in hand, I'd like to use the hunker down first. So I'm sitting around thinking maybe he can reroll and I can take those 3 shields. I've got to play it out as tight as possible because this is the time here. So it's all about the numbers. So he's re-rolling 2 dice by discarding flank. And there we go. He gets a +2 ranged and a 1 range. So don't remember what I do here, but I know that if I take the 4 damage, his dice are all gone, and then I can hunker down. I guess I don't need to hunker down if his dice are all gone, but I was doing some math here and deciding what to play and what to keep for rerolls and that sort of thing. So I pass, and John looks at me like I am crazy.
Yes, it is. Very much so, John.
Come to think of it, it looks like that second card on my discard pile is flank, so I guess I don't have flank in my hand. So I've passed, and John is wondering why I passed. So I don't see any reason why he wouldn't just put the 4 damage into me, but maybe he's got cards in hand that make him want to save one of his dice out there. But when you're at time, you want to put in as much damage as you can, potentially. But of course, if leaving the 1 range damage out on Django means that you can use He Doesn't Like You to remove it, to remove a 2 damage side of mine, then it was a net gain.
I think it's total hit points.
So what's really interesting here is that John only has 3 cards left in his deck, and I have about 9. So if I can tie him or better on hit points remaining, then I can win. I now have 2 hit points remaining on Balatique, which means that because of that battlefield that's out there, I effectively have 1 hit point remaining on Balatique. So I essentially need to do 6 or more damage right now in order to win the game by tying him or actually killing Django. So unfortunately, I spent a lot of my cards. I think the hunker down was a bit of a waste because I didn't really need the shield. I was sort of not clear on the tiebreakers and thinking maybe it was effective hit points remaining.
No, I'm gonna pass.
Okay, I'm gonna pay 2
Since it won't matter.
for a holdout blaster.
So I play out a holdout blaster just to get that extra damage. Unfortunately, I don't have the resource to pay for the holdout blaster side, but an extra die is an extra die.
And 1
So I come in with the roll.
black. Here we go, ready?
It's a discard, a blank, 2 shields, a focus, and a blank. So effectively the only thing that's actually useful in that entire thing, maybe the discard if he's got some dice mitigation, or maybe the focus. So On the Hunt does have a range damage side, so I discard He Doesn't Like You, and I'm leaving the focus because I need the damage.
I'm not leaving this to chance.
So I get a 1 range damage on the holdout blaster, 2 shields, a resource, and a +1. So essentially I've got two range damage showing. I could focus the jetpack into 3, making it 5 damage, which is pretty close. So he gets rid of my focus, which is probably the best choice. And I'm thinking maybe I should have resolved that discard to get rid of his electroshock potentially. So I can put 2 damage into him. I can reroll the jetpack and the Balatique and hope for the best.
Damage to Django.
I resolve my ranged dice to put 2 damage in his Django.
Arm to the teeth.
So I play Arm to the Teeth and do 3 damage. So I put Django at 8. So he had 2 hit points remaining and I had 1. So I probably should have discarded Arm to the Teeth and re-rolled the Balatique and the jetpack. That might have been a mistake, but that was as close a game as you can get as far as I'm concerned. 1 more damage on his Django and I would have won it. So there it is. That's the best of 1 finals. And that's the GG. So, the lesson we learn here is to make sure to be clear on the tiebreaker rules, even if you're playing a Django deck. You never know when you might need them. Thanks for watching. That's the end of our 4-1 Games tournament coverage for this tournament. Tune in the next few days. We'll be starting with our face-to-face tournament. So if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and like the video so that we can keep bringing you more Destiny coverage. Thanks for watching, everyone.